Good day, everyone. Welcome to the world of bloodsuckers and freeloaders. No, I mean parasitology lesson. For now, I will just tackle the overview of the lice, ticks, fleas, and mites, since other group already emphasized each of them. So let's get started. Parasitology overview. You know that parasitology is the branch of biology that studies and deals with parasites and parasitism, especially among animals. Parasites include things that live internal or external to the infected or infested. Right now we will discuss the topic for external or ectoparasites. Broadly speaking, all pathogens may be classified as parasites. Narrowly speaking, parasitology is the science that studies the relatively large parasites including parasitic lice, ticks, fleas, and mites. Today we'll consider the summary of lice, ticks, fleas, and mites. Vectors and hosts. So, a vector is a living organism that carries a disease-causing organism to a new host. This distinction can be arbitrary, however, depending on which organism infection we are most concerned with. Thus, the Anopheles mosquito, this, is a vector for the parasitic disease malaria, this. Because we care more about the health of the human host than that of the mosquito. However, in addition, the malaria parasite has a much greater impact on the health of the human host than it does on the health of the mosquito vector. Next is biological versus mechanical vector. The confusion between host and vector comes from the concept of biological vector. Within or upon both a host and biological vector, the parasite undergoes some aspect of its life cycle. Thus, in one sense, all hosts that can pass a parasite, like this dog, particularly to another species or host is the mosquito, is also a biological vector. However, if the parasite does not undergo some aspect of its life cycle, as it is transported by one organism to a second, then the first organism is described as the mechanical vector. For example, it's flies. Flies can be mechanical vectors. This flies can be example of mechanical vector. Because of feces-borne pathogen such as salmonella. There are many types of hosts. The host is which the parasite goes through its sexual cycle, their fertilization and meiosis. For example, the mosquitoes serve as definitive hosts of the malaria parasites, Palastium ssp, while snakes, many different species of snakes, serve as definitive hosts of Sacrosis singaporensis, or a disease for mammals. There is also an intermediate host. This is a host which the parasite replicates but does not go through its sexual cycle. This is humans included in here. Humans and mammals serve as intermediate host of the malaria parasites, and mammals serve as intermediate hosts of Sacrosis singaporensis. Lastly is the reservoir hosts. The reservoir host is the population in which a parasite resides when it isn't affecting a population that we care more about. For example, this rabies. This rabies virus normally is passed back and forth among wild animals. They serve as the reservoir hosts, the population that we don't know much about. Occasionally, however, rabies can infect pets, your pets, and thereby us, the humans. To prevent the infection, we vaccinated the pets, avoid handling wild animals, and otherwise attempt to reduce the incidence of rabies in reservoir pups. That's all for the introduction of the hosts. Next, we go to our main topic, the lice, the ticks, the mites, and the fleas. Lice. If you can define lice, lice is an ectoparasite of human, cattle, and animals. Worldwide, more than 550 species of louse can have been reported. Human lice survive by feeding on human blood, or animal blood, or any mammal blood. Lice infestation are most commonly caused by close person-to-person contact or body contact, you can say. Body louse is only reported to spread disease. Therefore, treatment is available, so identification can help taking accurate control measures. And it is small, dorsoventrally flattened, exoptergot wingless insect. They have two different forms of lice that have evolved, which is Malophaga and Nanoplura. Malophaga retains the primitive insect mandibulate mouthparts and feed on epidermal structures of birds, mammals. And Anoplura, they evolve specialized mouthparts for blood feeding, and they are only found on humans. There's a specific host of them. This is the Malophaga. Have a chewing part and head larger than their thorax. And Anoplura were piercing mouth parts and head narrower than the thorax, and legs have distinct claws. Three types of lice are there to consider under medical importance for human based on part they feed on. The Pediculus humanus capitis, Pediculus humanus corporis, and Phytrus pubis, and we will discuss it now. Pediculus humanus capitis, or head louse. An adult lice are obligated blood-sucking ectoparasites that require warmth and a source of human blood to survive. Their place is humans. The place of feeding is humans, susceptible for children. Then transmission from person-to-person contact, and they only can get from the hair, and they will die if separated from human host for 24 hours. They are hemimetabolous, or no pupa, and they can feed on blood for 4 to 10 days, 4 to 10 per day. And their life sometimes gets up to 35 days. And reduced compound eyes, no cells. And they can crawl. They can crawl from the hair for 30 centimeters per minute. That's so fast. Their eggs are laid in their shells, attached to the hair. The shape of their eggs are flask-shaped and have a lid, or you can say operculum, that covers the free end. And the color is grayish-white, transparent but turns black dark brown after tanning, and that sometimes gets 0.33 millimeters to 0.8 millimeter in size, or size of a pencil. And after hatching, empty white to dull yellow and almost clear colored neat casing or shells are left behind. They remain tightly adhered to hair shaft. Viable needs are always found close to the scalp, nearly 1 to 4 millimeters. And human hair grows slowly at an average rate of approximately 0.37 millimeter per day. Needs found several millimeters from the scalp are now empty, egg case, and it is tightly glued to the base of the hair shaft nearest the scalp with chitin. You can see this. They're near the scalp. And the eggs are usually deposited 1 to 4 millimeters from the scalp and hatch within 6 to 10 days. Only eggs deposited by inseminated female lice will hatch and may persist for months, even after treatment, if not removed. This is a nymph. It looks like an adult louse but smaller and immature. The size is 1 millimeter in size, the size of a pinhead. It matures in 3 stages. This first nymph, second nymph, third nymph. They grow by molting or shedding their skin 3 times before reaching adult. And during of nymph stage, they took it for 7 to 14 days or 2 weeks. Nymphs tend to remain on the head where they hatch. The newly hatched nymph will seek a place to feed immediately. The 3 nymphal stage lasts about 8 to 12 days. And this is the third part, the adult. Adult lice is a wingless, elongated body with 3 segments: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. Short antennae with 4 segments. And a small head with anterior piercing mouth parts that are used to pierce the scalp and feed on blood. This one, 6 short and stubby legs with single tarsal segments with powerful hooks like claws at the end of each leg. Like this. You can see this. That's the claw. They are dorso-ventrally flattened, and they are long and as wide. The female is longer, bigger than the male, and the mating only occurs once fully grown. They have a color as gray, tan, brown, red, or black, depending on their feeding, and color changes to rust colored after blood meal. Yes. Next is Pediculus humanus, or body louse. They can survive up to 1 week after getting separated from human host without feeding. Mouth parts same as head louse, piercing and sucking types. The body louse is the vector of 3 bacterial diseases: the epidemic or louse-borne typhus caused by rickettsia, trench fever caused by Rochamia quantana, or Rickettsia quantana, louse-borne relapsing fever caused by Borrelia rockettsia lepert. Virus pubis or pubic louse. Pubic louse is associated with poor hygiene, condition, or socioeconomic status. And public louse are adapted to a sedentary lifestyle on pubic hair, armpits, sometimes on eyelashes, mustache, beard, and body hair. They are usually transmitted during sexual contact and have associated with other sexually transmitted disease. But they do not cause any disease. They look like a crab shape, thus also known as crab lice, which makes it easily distinguishable from head and body lice. Bigger. The body, the abdomen is bigger than the head and the thorax. Life cycle same in pubic lice. The egg, nymph, and adult only difference is in duration of different stages during life cycle. They can be distinguished according to their forelegs delicate with long slender claws, other legs very stout with short stout claws, thumb-like process of tibia short and stout, abdomen very short and broad, segment 1 to 5 closely crowded, thus the stigma of segments 3 to 5 apparently lying in one lateral process, and the adult size of them is 1.1 to 1.7 millimeters. Then now, let's proceed for the ticks. Ticks. This is the life cycle of the ticks that has 4 stages. The egg, the 6-legged larvae, the 8-legged nymph, and the adult. Must consume blood from a host at every stage to develop. Each stage must find a new host. Ticks are usually larger than mites, ranging in around 3 to 12 millimeters or more in the case of engorged females. Pierces skin and attached to host with mouth parts, and feed on animals, birds, and lizards. Their larvae and nymph prefer smaller hosts, and they can crawl upward and vegetation, waits and raise forelegs for hosts to pass by and latch on the victim. That's how they work. And after feeding, female drops to ground, lays eggs. Sometimes, I guess it's around 3,000 to 6,000 eggs per day or per feeding, then dies. These moist, shady habitats to breed prefer the high grass, pasture areas, and woodlands. And they can live for 1 to 2 years, depend on species, and environment conditions. And mostly, they are not insects. They are under or related to spiders and mites. Families. 2 families, the Exodiid and Agracidae. Exodiid or hard ticks, the scutum is present, and Argacidae, soft ticks, scutum is absent. This is the scutum. Yeah, that one. Then this organism is a hard tick. Okay. The third family of ticks is called Notalidae, or thou have contained only a single scutum. They are known in Africa, southern Africa, for nesting of swallows. This is the hard ticks, soft ticks, and Liliidae. Soft ticks versus hard ticks. Distinguished by a dorsal shield, small in female, but covers the entire dorsal surface in males. They are also tapered anteriorly, and the mouth parts are readily visible from the dorsal view. Soft ticks leathery and without a dorsal shield. Their mouth parts is subterminal attached and not visible from the dorsal view. Yes. You can't see their mouth here. That's the soft X. Their body parts. The anterior capitulum, this one, you can see it really, this, it's like a mouth, which contains the head and mouth parts, and the posterior idiosoma, which contains the legs, digestive tract, and reproductive organs. These sticks extract the blood by cutting a hole in the host epidermis, into which they insert their hypostome in order to keep the blood from clotting, exerting an anticoagulant or platelet aggression inhibitor. These are morphological or their personal differences. The Hartex are capitulum as anterior to body, visible from dorsum. The capitulum of Softex can see or invisible. The scutum is present while the Softex is absent. Pedipalpi is strong or not movable. The Softex is movable or active. The sexes is male smaller with large scutum and vice versa, and the Softex doesn't have, but females are larger. The position of stigma plate is behind the base of fourth legs, and while the Softex between third and fourth legs. This is their life cycle differences in terms of habitat, hosts, adult feeding, mating, egg laying, nymph, and lifespan. Then let's proceed for the fleas. The morphology of the fleas. Fleas is laterally compressed and first segment on one leg, and the causa is large. This one. This is the leg, right? Then the first segment on each leg is large and provided incredible power for jumping. Lateral compression allows ease of movement through the hairs on the host. Being a good jumper allows them to effectively move from one host to another. The antennae of the male, the antennae of the male are nearly always longer than those of females. During copulation, the male takes up a position beneath the female and holds her firmly with his antennae from below. The male body has an upward tilt posteriorly, but the female body is evenly rounded terminally. Fleas are encased in a suit of armor, like this one. Suit of armor. Each segment of the thorax may be regarded as a membranous ring of adjoining plates. This is fascinating. Next, their life history and habits. During their life cycle, fleas pass through a complete metamorphosis from egg to larva to pupa to adult. The eggs to larva to pupa to adult, like a butterfly. Then eggs are large, smooth, and oval, translucent. In 2 to 10 days, the eggs hatch into eyeless, legless, active larvae. The heads are strongly sclerosed. Under favorable conditions, the larvae may reach their third stage in about 2 weeks, but development may be delayed for 6 months or more. Larvae feed on organic debris in the host nest, in surfaces on the floor or under the rugs. Oh my. Larvae of bird fleas thrive on broken down sheets of feathers on the epidermal scales of young birds. Most fleas have 3 larvae stages. Each third instar larva spins a cocoon within which it pupates. Pupae or pupa may live for a week up to a year depending on the species and the environment conditions related to temperature and moisture. The fully formed adult may lie quiescent for an indefinite period of time before it's become active and attempt to infect a host. Some fleas and human disease. The bacterial causative agent of plague, Yersinia pestis, this is the Yersinia pestis, is transmitted by fleas from rodents to man. While black fleas continues its attempt to feed and bits of bacillary mass breaks off and injected into the hosts. And lastly is Xenophilia Chiopis and Nosophilus fasciatus. This is Xenophilia Chiopis or northern rat fleas, and this is the oriental rat fleas or bear with me, I don't know how to pronounce this properly, but I'll try. Nosophilus fasciatus are also vectors of non-epidemic typhus of man called murine typhus. Now, we're done with fleas. Then let's go with mites. Mites is under the class of Arachnida. Arachnida is a class of joined leg invertebrate in the Sypholium Clecarata. The order is Acarina. Acarina is a small or very small arachnids, most of which have a short, unsegmented abdomen. Mites are among one of the most diverse and successful of all invertebrate groups. They are small in size and often go unnoticed. They cause loss to store products, also cause damage to beneficial insects like honeybee. They can be found in variety of habitat, the aquatic lake or pond, and terrestrial plant, animals, birds, and insects, or they live freely sometimes. Their body is divided into regions: the cephalothorax, this, and the abdomen. They also have a 4 pair of legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Another one on the side, sucking mouth parts, and they don't have any antenna or wings. Their life cycle consists of egg, larvae, prothonymph, deuteronymph, and adult. These are the types of mites. I will not discuss it since it was already discussed by another group, but they are the types of mites that infected or infested other groups of hosts or vectors hosts. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but please email it to me one by one so that I will answer them all. Thank you very much.